Hello, everybody. Look, I don't have any great wisdoms. I don't know why. So I don't like to call this Q&A. I might like this mic better. Can you guys hear me better here? I think that's better. I don't have any great wisdom. I think this is more of a time for us to talk to each other. When I do the big conventions, it's one of those things where I'll do the presentation. Thanks for coming, and I'm off the stage. But in the local setting, it's more intimate. It's more of a family atmosphere. We get a chance to kind of talk to each other. So I'm not as interested in, hey, Seth, what do you think of this? Because I may just stare at you blankly. But what do you think? Do you have a comment, question, challenge, opinion, advice? What's on your mind? Does anybody have anything they'd like to contribute? And if you can't hear the question, I'll try to repeat the question. Am I that good? No. Oh, there's somebody in the back. Yes.
They did enter First World War until about 1960. They were there for less than 2 years.
So the war itself began in 14, but the U.S. didn't enter for 2 more years. Okay. I did include the U.S., I think, in the list of the Allies, but I didn't differentiate there, did I? So thank you for that clarification. Yep. See, it's what happens when you get into a room full of educated skeptics. They don't let anything pass. Here's a great example of that. So years and years and years ago, I was talking about flat earthers and how the conspiracy of flat earth blows my mind. I was talking to an astrophysicist named Dan Batcheldor about it. And Dr. Batcheldor is like, can you imagine, for flat earth to be a thing, every global space agency, all world governments, all of meteorology, the entire airline industry, everybody who's there would all have to be in on it to get away. And it blew his mind. So I did a video and I said, well, we all know that the earth is round. And my inbox immediately exploded. And I was informed, no, the earth is an oblate spheroid. Excuse me. That's what this community is like. Anybody else have anything you'd like to talk about? Share, ask. No? Are we good? Go ahead, sir.
I thought that passage from Ingersoll was really beautiful.
I was given the honor of being the keynote at the 30th anniversary dedication of his birthplace museum in New York. And in preparation for that, I went back and started reviewing, because he's one of the most quotable writers. He's one of those guys who back in the 1800s would start speaking, and 3.5 hours later, he might be done. But it was all good. And I published a podcast where I just read an hour worth of his stuff. If anyone's interested, it's called something like the greatest humanist you've never heard of. And if anyone is not familiar with Ingersoll, the man was a master of language. He inspires me, all these years later. He just opened up my world. And you owe it to yourself to read some Ingersoll. Thank you for that. There was someone in the back.
Leaving religion, how do you make that transition from a religious moral system to something not grounded?
How do I make the transition from a religious moral system to something that is grounded outside of religion? Has anyone in this room who is non-religious ever been asked where your morals come from? Do people have any idea how insulting that question? I mean, in many cases, some people are genuinely curious. But how do you know that rape and murder are wrong if you are a humanist? To me, it's kind of an insulting question.
Scary, actually.
I was at a debate in Claremore, Oklahoma. I was watching an apologist and an atheist debating. And the apologist actually said, you know what? If it wasn't for Jesus and my belief in Jesus, I might be a murderer. And the atheist guy said, you know what? In your case, I'm glad you're a Christian. So, for those who are approached in your life asking, well, how do you know right and wrong? How do you know murder is wrong? How do you know stealing is wrong? All those things. I always talk about pro-social behaviors and how we can actually root those in our evolution. This is not going to be news to a lot of you, but I beg your indulgence. we realized on the African savanna that pro-social behaviors benefited the tribe, benefited the group, which came back to benefit us. Those who went out on their own, who acted in antisocial and destructive ways, often didn't survive very long to pass on their genes. It was those who cooperated together. They were better at procuring resources. They were better at warding off predators and dangers and attackers and outgroupers. They were happier generally because they were able to live more fulfilled lives. And we can understand in that way how, even though there are anomalies out there, that evolution does describe, even altruistic, even if there's not something as true, pure altruistic behavior. Let's say I've always got self-interest. It's still interest in doing what is right and trying to, And another thing that I resist in the old religious model is the very reductive binary way of looking at morality. Do not bear false witness, right? There's big talk about the 10 Commandments. Have you guys had the thrill of watching My Home State of Oklahoma with a guy named Ryan Walters? You guys been watching that guy? When he quit as superintendent of public construction, I am not kidding, there were parties. People threw parties to celebrate his departure. Whatever you do in this world, live your life in a way that no one wants to throw a party when you quit. Just a little life coaching for you there. But I use this example. Do not bear false witness. What's the moral thing to do? I'm at home. My doorbell rings. Someone shows up. It is an abused wife from a neighboring house. She is bruised and she is crying. Protect me. I open my door. Come in. Close the door. We're huddled inside. Boom, boom, boom on the door. It's the abuser. I'm looking for my wife. Is she in there? I say, no, she's not here. No, she's not. Move on. No. There's nothing here. Go on. Now, I just bore false witness. But what I did was protect a victim and my own family from an abuser. So what was the moral choice? What's more, was I in violation of one of the great commandments? And I think morality is often situational ethics. I love the fact that in this country, most of the people who are trying to jam the 10 Commandments into schools and courthouses, statistically, most Americans can't name 5 of the 10 Commandments. Supposedly the most important commands ever given to humankind by God. They know all of the lyrics to Bohemian Rhapsody. They know all the lyrics to Bohemian Rhapsody. They can't give you 5 of the 10 Commandments. I find that, and when we see those instances, the 10 Commandments plaques are really about marking territory. They're not about morality. Does anyone think don't lie, don't steal, don't hurt people is anything new? The Sumerians were doing that. Humankind's have had moral codes since forever. I honestly find I'm happier and I feel like I'm more moral now that I'm not tethered to having to defend often the indefensible. Forgive me, I'm diarrhea of the mouth. This is what happens when you ask a broadcaster to answer a question. There was somebody else around here, anybody who wanted to chat? Yes. Yes.
Have you thought of putting together a talk that deals with how movements such as you showed us, these authoritarian, destructive movements, how groups of people get together and then form a collective that can push against that, because obviously those regimes are gone.
Yeah.
So what is it that can motivate people to move beyond their fears, to oppose productively these kinds of leaders?
So your question essentially is, how do we fix the world?
But in little bites.
I got you. This is the question. Does anyone here in this room share my feeling of a kind of helplessness?
Yes.
Like I feel let down. I feel like the Congress is loaded with invertebrates or grifters, or they love it, or opportunists. The Supreme Court there's been a hostile takeover. We can't rely on the high court. I'm nervous about the lower courts. We're seeing pockets of actual law being enforced and reinforced, but we're also seeing the laws be ignored. We're seeing the real-time dismantling of so many of the protections. Now we're facing who knows what. I can't even fathom it, and I feel helpless. And the No Kings protests they've been good for me in the sense that I'm reminded I'm not alone. I had this conversation with someone, they were talking about this too. I have this faint hope that someone who is in elected office will see 7 million people in the streets and get it, and even out of self-preservation would start to come to their senses. But I struggle with how do you make an uprising effective when so much has been strategically dismantled around us. I'm genuinely afraid. I'm a full-time activist, and did you guys read that new memorandum from Donald Trump that said they were targeting anti-American, anti-capitalist, and anti-Christian bias? Well, I don't consider what I do anti-Christian bias. I was a 30-year believer. I don't speak out against my former faith, especially the fundamentalist version, because I'm biased against it. I speak out because I've dismantled it, I've deconstructed, I find there's a real problem. But because I'm engaged, now I could be called an anti-Christian enemy of the state. What happens then? Am I shadow banned, demonetized, penalized, deleted? Who knows? And then what do I do at my age to survive and thrive? How do I provide for my family? How do we activist if our conduits are shut down? These are very, very difficult questions that I don't necessarily have the answer to. And I have another fear, and I'd be curious to see if anybody else has shared this. Martin Luther King Jr. once said that riots are the language of the unheard. What happens if every other avenue is shut down and out of sheer desperation, human beings storm the Bastille? What does that look like? Is it necessary? Maybe. Does it then activate those who said we were Judas to begin with, we were terrorists to begin with, and then they activate the military against us as citizens? These are questions that I'm not smart enough to answer, unfortunately. But just know that if you have asked those questions, that you're not the only one. And I've decided in my own life that I'm not going home. I'll bet you're not going home, right? We're going to continue to speak to our values. We're going to stand up, pressure our elected representatives, even, and it's my hope that if we can survive to the midterms, maybe there will be some kind of a pendulum shift. Is that pie in the sky? Am I kidding myself? I don't know. Forgive me for not being able to answer your question. I don't know how we coalesce in ways that will fix what is broken. Except I think visibility is where we start. I think we have to be big, and we have to look strong, and we have to look unapologetic, and we got to be seen. And the more we're seen, the more they're going to try to marginalize us, and good luck with that. Good luck with that. Yes, sir?
I have good news. If we storm the White House, Trump will pardon us.
No, he'll pardon us. Have you guys seen the meme of the dismantled White House East Wing, and they're already building the Death Star? They're already building half the Death Star exists on that side. Have you seen how gaudy that ball? And he's going to name it after, oh my God. And so I have this fantasy is that one day when finally he's gone, that all of those pieces are dismantled, the materials are reappropriated for something else, the Rose Garden is reset. Did you know that right now, this is a word of encouragement to you specifically, but to all of us. There are librarians and data researchers and teachers and professors and educators across the country who are archiving what the White House has been deleting. So they are creating a storehouse to protect the information that the Trump administration wants wiped from public memory, knowing that one day there will be a reset and there will be a resource where we can find out what did happen in history. what is part of our heritage, what was said, what did they mean, what was done. And those people are freaking heroes. They are heroes, and they are out there. So be encouraged by that. Was there one more somewhere? Yes, sir.
How is it being a humanist and an atheist in a red state like Oklahoma? I like to think we're pretty darn blue here in New Mexico. All of our representatives, senators, and
How does it feel to be an atheist humanist in red state Oklahoma? Well, some people have asked why I haven't left, and there's a few reasons. One is that, honestly, I couldn't buy our house somewhere else. I mean, we bought in at 3%, and now the interest rate's 6 something, and you go somewhere where the water's not brown and the cities are more blue, then the price doubles, and that's frustrating. And our family, our social connections are home. And part of me just likes being that pain in the ass blue dot. And it used to be. Let me tell you a story. Thank you for your patience. Are you guys having an okay time? I want to be a good steward of your time. And if you heard me tell the story on the podcast, I beg your indulgence there as well. But I used to really hedge when I was around people in Oklahoma. I mean, what I do was considered controversial, and I used to avoid it. And now I feel like it's healthy for them to see an atheist in the wild. Wow, it's an atheist in the wild. There is someone. I get to know people personally before we get into anything about politics and religion. They humanize me. He's a nice guy, loves his family, he cares, he's moral, he's got joy. And all of a sudden after that, they find out that I'm not a God believer, and it's a hell of a lot harder to put me in a box. I mess up their categories. I'm hoping to expand their perceptions just a little bit. But I've become less apologetic, and here's the story that I tell. It was years ago, and my cousin Susie had not come to Oklahoma to visit from Chicago, where she lives. She hadn't been there in 15 years, so she was coming to town. And I don't have a great relationship with my evangelical family. It's been very difficult. But my sister called and said, Sue's going to be in town, and she would love to see you. We're all going to have dinner at my place. I said, okay, all right, I'll be there. Well, I hadn't seen Sue in 15 years either. So we're all around the big table. Now, remember, my parents are scandalized. My parents are theologian level believers. They met at Oral Roberts University. My mother taught New Testament Greek. They are hardcore. So my apostasy has been extremely scandalous, So we're all around the table, and Sue starts asking people, well, what do you do? What do you do for a living? And they're like, oh, I work here, Oh, I work in medical. I'm a nurse. Oh, what's that like, And what do you do? What's your, oh, we just got back from a mission trip, or I forgot whatever the story was. Now I'm sitting over here, and the obvious hits me. Holy shit, they're going to get to me. And I've got to tell them what I do for a living. What am I going to do? So they finally come around, and they get to me. And Sue's like, so what is it you do? And my mother already is beginning to really scowl. And I see her, my periphery, and I'm just like, okay, all right, enhance your calm. You're going to get through this. And so I decided to be a politician about it. And I said, I host a podcast, and I do some video production. I'm a video producer and podcaster. And so-and-so, and I immediately sort of segued to the next part. I don't even remember who was sitting next to me, but I remember I got out of it. But I could tell Sue was not satisfied with that answer. So she came back to me and she said, you podcaster. I know you did radio for 14 years. What's your podcast about? We talk about religious and political issues of the day. Next, right? I kicked the can down the road. And I knew she was coming back to me. I knew it. And all of a sudden, right then, I had this thought. And I thought, everybody else at this table is, without apology, being their authentic self. No one at this table flinched when they said, I go to this church, my brother-in-law's got a seminary degree and he does counseling, and someone else inside, they're all loud and proud about who they are authentically. They didn't even freaking blink. Why am I the one supposedly keeping the peace? It's not really peace. It's just an absence of conflict. That's a different thing. It's a total double standard. And right then I just thought, okay, screw it. And she came back to me and she goes, tell me more about this podcast. And I said, I host the most popular atheist podcast in the world. And I waited. I was waiting. Thermonuclear blast, tears, people get up, praying for me. None of it happened. None of it happened. I could tell my parents they really turned to stone, but they didn't freak out. And the moment passed and everyone went on their separate way. It was okay. But here's the point of the story. Beyond the fact that I think we should all, whenever possible, it's not always possible, but try to be who we are authentically. We don't owe it to keep other people comfortable. It's not my job to keep everybody else comfortable. It's neither is yours, right? They're uncomfortable, that's their problem. But Sue went back to Chicago, and I got an email out of the blue. She said, my husband is coming out of the Catholic faith, and he's deconstructing. And he was at the table, and he can't stop talking about your journey. And I'm reading your book right now. And can I connect you and Mark so that maybe you could encourage him along the way? Yes, 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 please connect Mark and me. I would love to speak to Mark about his journey out of the Catholic faith. But if I had not said anything, because you never know what private battle anybody's fighting. You never know where they are. You never know who's doubting. You never know who's got an unspoken inner life. And if I hadn't been true to myself verbally in that moment, I would have never been able to connect with Mark in that way and tell him, I don't care where you land. The important thing is that you're on the journey on your own terms. And if you learn something new and you discover a God or a different God or whatever, call me. And I want to know that. That's what honest people need to be able to do. I don't have a dog in this fight. I don't need God to not exist. I want to know whatever's true. Let's do that. And I was able to encourage him. And I tried to give that encouragement to other people. You just never know. You never know when someone's got this tiny little red little flashing light in the back of their brain, and all they needed was to see somebody else reflect what they might be thinking, and they find their courage. Sit up a little more in their chair and they reach out. I've got nephews and nieces. I've got cousins. I've got people on my family tree. If my parents knew, if they knew how many people in my family are deconstructing, it would blow their mind. And I was the guy who was kind of first through the wall, so they'll call me. Psst, hey, don't tell anybody. Can we talk? Oh yeah, let's talk. Forgive me, I'm going off again. Was there anybody else? A few more, and I'll make sure that you guys can get on with the rest of your day. Yes?
In the rise of an authoritarian individual, do you think it's passivity, fear, or people being preoccupied just with getting through the day, putting food on the table? What do you think is the biggest factor in that rise?
Yes, the answer is yes. I don't like to use the word stupid. God, there's a cancer of stupid. Has anybody else gone through this in your brain? Like, ignorance can be fixed. Stupid may be forever. I think there is an entire culture of people who have an opinion about this country and the world who couldn't name 2 of our Supreme Court justices. They don't know what the 3 branches of government are. They've never read the Constitution. They don't know who their elected representatives are. They don't understand how authoritarians rise. They don't get it. Authoritarians so often use democracy to gain power, and then they dismantle democracy. So all the people that I'm surrounded with now, I feel like they're uninformed, and yet they have an opinion. I think there are others that are distracted. It gets overwhelming. People like the bumper sticker, so they move on. It doesn't affect me, so it doesn't matter. And I think there are some people who love it. I think there are people, I can think of a couple people, honestly, they would burn this country down just to own the libs. There's something that is often called vertical morality. It's also known as the divine right of kings. I think this comes into play. If Donald Trump stands in front of a church he does not attend and he holds up a Bible he does not read, for them, he is now God's proxy on earth. They can shut off all critical thought and they obey because God's law trumps man's law. So no matter what dismantling of law, the Constitution, decorum, any judicial or executive branch, or a legislative branch, no matter what happens here, God's law trumps man's law. I think there's some people that have that vertical morality model. I think it's situational. There are probably 1,000 reasons why. But we're definitely it's funny. Anybody ever met a "we're number one America patriot," #patriot? Like the difference between patriot, but we'll call him a nationalist. America is the greatest country on the face of the earth. You and I do what skeptical people do, and we say, by what metric are we number one? I wrote about this in a book I wrote called Confessions of a Former Fox News Christian, in a chapter called We Are Number One. And I went down at the time, and this is 5 years ago, so the stats may be a little out of date, but it was like, okay, well, greatness. Let's find out who's great. Cost of living? Nope, right? Education? Hell no. Technology, innovation, the arts, lifespan, who's the most warlike or least warlike, who's the most miserable. We weren't even close. We weren't close. You want great healthcare? I mean, you're going to Canada, right? Or one of those other countries that it's imperfect, but it's much better than what we've got. Technology, you're going to Japan, Switzerland for overall quality of life. You know what the United States is number one in? Military spending and national pride. Meaning, we're number one at saying we're number one. And I think, Pete Buttigieg once said that this America First mentality doesn't mean America first. It really means America alone. And we live in a culture where people know in their heart we're the best. We have a cultural superiority complex. We can't defend it. There aren't any reasons for it. It's dismissive to our brothers, our fellow travelers, brothers and sisters around the world. But somehow they've got this sort of national superiority complex. And boy, this administration knows how to tap that nerve for sure. And it's a little discouraging. Let's do one more and then I'll let everybody be free. I think I got you before. Let me get you in the back.
So I was wondering, you as an activist, how do you deal with friends of yours, group people who refuse to talk politics, discuss, they're just so fearful and burned out, they're with you, they think like you, but they just refuse to even say it anymore.
Someone who might share my value system, but they don't engage.
They're so burned out that they don't want to talk about it.
I grab them by the shoulders and shake them violently. And I say, what's wrong with you? It's weird. Maybe it's my circle, but most of the people I know who have convictions along the lines that I do are pretty vocal about it. But, cultural weariness is a strategy. Did you guys see Trump's advisor, Steve Bannon? And he talked about a strategy called flood the zone. He said the media and the public they're dumb and they're lazy. So you do the thinking for them and you give them 3 outrages, distractions, whatever, every day. You flood the zone, a fire hose to the face every day. And they can't keep up. And while they're busy over here trying to figure out how to keep the chainsaws in the air, you're over here getting done all the stuff you really want to do. It's a strategy. And I find that how do I say this? I'll say it not because I'm trying to be dramatic, but because I'll bet some of you, many of you, or all of you are going through it maybe too. I'm having trouble sleeping at night.
Yes.
Feel that?
Yes.
You lay in bed and your mind races. And you're like, how do we get here? The people I thought I knew. How could you? Those are the words I was using. How could you? Actively harming the people and the causes I care about. What happens if I get used to military people in the streets? What happens if I get used to the fact that the elections are declared null and void and whoever happens to be there is there? And what happens if I get used to boats being destroyed with people on them and we have no idea even who they are? It's normalized murder at the presidential. What happens if all of this just becomes scar tissue? How does that affect me? How does it affect my family? How does it affect the people and causes I care about? And I'm up, Natalie will tell you, at 2:30 in the morning, I'm wandering the house. And then I make this mistake. I start to log on to the internet. The balance between wanting to be informed and wanting to protect yourself at the same time. I want to not be ignorant about the world, but the more I read, the more I just want to run into a freeway and say, take me, it's over, I can't stand it. I have had to partition my time online. I think we have to will ourselves to the point where we focus on what we can control. There are things that we can control. Most of them are going to be in our inner circle. I think we need to have hard conversations with the people in those circles, even if it might cost them to distance themselves, but they need to realize there's tremendous harm being done. You know, I've phrased it this way to a few magas in my zone on my tennis team. We actually had a conversation, and I said, it's important that you realize that Donald Trump's presidency is harming me and people like me and people I care about. Whether or not they agree, they need to hear it. And I think, you know, at the grassroots, local level, and then we begin to move out, we're true to ourselves. I think that's good medicine. I think we need each other. This is a meeting of my people, right? This is my tribe. I have lost family in many the aspects of my life. And I will confess this, that being here is a kick. I get a chance to do a presentation, and I'm hoping you have a good time, and it's a rush, and all those things. But beyond that, your presence here is medicine, because I am surrounded by people that I don't feel like I'm supposed to give an excuse to. I don't have to explain myself to. Nobody wants me to apologize for. You don't treat me like some broken thing. We all want the same goodness to survive and thrive. And it's a reminder to me that there is still good in the world. No Kings is a reminder there is still good in the world. The courts who are coming forward and holding up what is right remind us there is still good in the world. Our coalitions and those who advocate and stand with us in countries all around the world are reminders there is still good in the world. And that's what I'll leave you with today. When I look at you, it's oxygen. Thank you. It's oxygen. And it's oxygen for each other. Look at each other. Be encouraged by each other. Remind each other and keep kicking, because there is still good in the world. And I thank you all so much.
To share with you, with the full power and authority given us by the humanist gods, we give you this certificate of heathen salvation. Not clear what you're saved from, but
Hang on, hold on. This actually says, Certificate of Heathen Salvation. Proudly presented, dated today, to Seth Andrews, and there's an asterisk. Valid throughout the multiverse and for all eternity. May not be combined with other offers or redeemed for cash. The Humanist Society of New Mexico is not responsible for anyone believing that heathen salvation is a real thing. Just be a good person. Everything will probably work out. Oh!
and also